there's a few other on the call today too.
Okay, so if you go to the enterprise admin, right? So here is all of my, here are all of my users, right? So the org charts are, I'm just going to create a new one and I'll just call it operations, right? So now with my, and I hope it works on the environment, on the demo environment. But here's my operations. That's my new org chart, right? So notice it's not really necessarily starting off with a user anymore. So it starts off with whatever you call your org chart. Um, but I can add a group. There's two things I'm going to show you, right? I can add a group and I can call it West Coast, right? And that's a region. I can add another group and call it Central. And then I can add another group and call it East Coast.
And where I found this really is improved is that it's easy to understand because John has the operations cell highlighted that everything that he's working on now is going to fall below that. But if he wanted to add something to the West Coast, he could highlight that cell very easily. And so
Right.
I think it's just more intuitive as to where you're working within the org chart is one huge
Right.
value I've seen.
So now I can also add a user at this level. And this is where it gets kind of tricky, right? So I've added Clint Eastwood. So you notice when I added these, I can either add it by, I can classify it as a division or whatever. So under West Coast, I could say, so anyway, by adding Clint Eastwood as a user, with a sibling with groups, Clint will actually be able to see each one of these groups, right? So he'll be able to see all three of them. And I'll show you how that works here in a minute. Um, but under the West Coast, I could add a group for, industrial, and we're going to call this a division. Basically, that just has a different icon there, right? And then I can go under industrial, or I can say West Coast. I can add a user that says Andy is going to be kind of managing that industrial. So he'll actually be able to see that group separately from his own personal stuff, right? So the industrial will only, roll, everything will roll up there. So if he'll have the option just to look at his stuff in the org chart or his stuff plus industrial or just industrial, right? He's going to have a lot of flexibility. And I could even add two, for example, I can, in the old chart, if I wanted to have two people to be able to see everything, I had to add them kind of vertically, right? But now I can actually add another user um, to that level. And so now James and Clint can see all three of those divisions. They're all siblings on that one level, right? So now if I go into industrial, I can start adding out my, let's say I have, I'll add one more group just for fun. Commercial, right? So Andy can see both of those. Now I can go in and just start adding a user to that group, add a user to commercial, right? So you can see how that starts. So Andy can see all of this, right? Bob can only see his stuff. In fact, I could go to Bob and add a user under Bob, right? Or I could add two or three users under Bob, right? And I can move this around, drag it around. I can expand it to fit, kind of that kind of stuff. And then I can start going into my central and start breaking out users there, add another user. Yeah, I'll add another user just for I mean, you can do it any number of ways. So the thing is, this is going to be so much more effective as far as making it easy to, you just have so much flexibility on how you're gonna set this up, right? I can add, users down below.
Hey, John, can the same user be added to two different groups?
No,
So now that Drew is assigned to the East Coast, Drew cannot be assigned to Central as well.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's where the tag functionality is going to come into play,
Well,
Bill.
there's there's the tag functionality where you can assign projects, but with our new the subscription model, that's going to open up even more options as well. But that's another month out because you'll be able to add you can break the projects out with more users, but we'll get into that later. But anyway, so that's my point here. You can get into so now James and Clint basically have access to because they're on the same level with East Coast, Central, and West Coast. They see everything rolls up to them, right? They can see everything in here. And I can plug people in wherever I want to put, I can plug these people into this org chart wherever I want to put them. Right. So it just gives you, number one, you can have multiple people on a parallel, right? So you don't have to stack, to be able to see things. And it makes it just very easy to build out your org chart with so many different options that we've kind of thought through every scenario that we've run through with all of our customers over the years. And this is going to address probably 95% of them, right?
John, this is Jody.
Yeah.
Just a quick question with regard to Bill Jack's point. If you had a specialist that was supporting all of the groups across a company, I don't know whether they be claims or risk or whatever else, would you put them at the highest level then? You don't necessarily want them to see everything, but they are supporting the different groups. How would you manage that?
So the idea here is you build out kind of like I did. You build out how your company, how your organization is broken out. And then you pretty much drop in your schedulers to see everything you drop them in at a level to where where you want those schedulers to be able to sit, right? So for example, I want Clint and James really to be able to see everything. So they're directly under operations, which means they can see all of themselves, obviously, but all of the groups in there, right? And probably by the end of the week, there will be, right now, Clint wouldn't be able to see James and James wouldn't be able to see Clint. But by the end of the week, we've got another upgrade come to this where I'll be able to check one. I'll be able to check Clint and he can actually see not only the groups at his level, but the other users at his level, right? So for example, with Drew and Jessica and Jim, I want Drew obviously to be able to see them, but I want Jessica, and she actually reports to Drew, but I want her to be able to see Jim's as well. I'll be able to check her and she can see all siblings, right? So there's just a lot of dynamic options here where you can set up, the only scenario that Bill Jack mentioned that, if I have let's say I have a West Coast and a Central, and I have one scheduler that's doing one project under here and one project under here, they would probably need to be at this level, right? And have, or you'd have to figure out some way to get the project underneath that group. That's where you'd have to use the tags. But let me do one more thing. You'll notice when you go into your org chart or when you go into your enterprise, and let me see if I can't go into it here, but when you go into, let me go into my users. I have the opportunity here under Drew. Well, let's do a different one. I'll say I can't remember who I did where, but we'll I'm trying to pick who was. Oh, here's Jim. Here's Jim. Right. I could go in here and say, make Jim. He can manage the org chart. Right. So I can say Jim can manage the org chart. He's got permissions. So when he goes into his menu here, he won't have the full enterprise admin, but he will say, I can go into my org chart. And when he goes into that, he's just going to see a list of the org charts that Jim's, I can't remember who I picked, but just the org chart that they're in. And let's say it is, let's see here. Who did we pick? Let's say it's Drew Carey. Let's say I picked Drew Carey and I made him an org chart. Well, when Drew Carey goes to that list of org charts, he would see all the org charts that he's in. And then he would be, when he opens that org chart, he would see just the people, his role and he would see East Coast at the top. He would see his, and then he would see Jessica and Jim. And if there were still unassigned users, he could actually just continue to build out his org chart at that level. So, one of the challenges we have some users that have, 100 or more people. It's a challenge to, whoever's administering the org charts, like, I don't even know these people, right? So now we're able to say, well, we're going to make our regional schedule manager, for example, they can't add users, they can't delete users, but they can manage their org chart. So if I need to add a user, I need to go to someone that has enterprise admin rights, right? But you don't have to give everyone enterprise admin just to be able to allow them to manage their org charts. But they can go in and see, I could go, for example, the scenario would be I contact you, Bill Jack, you're our enterprise admin, and I say, Bill Jack, can you add, employee A, B, C, and D, and you add those four, they would show up here on my unassigned users. And I could actually move them into my org chart down in here, right? So that we could, so the org chart administration has, and this is a major deal. We probably, my guess is we're probably going to want to sit down with each one of you and just kind of look at what you have. All your existing org charts should, that was one of the reasons it took so long. It took longer than we anticipated to get this rolled out, was really making sure that all your existing org charts still work, right? And so right now everything's in there, but you can go in and just start adding. You can start adding your breakout of your company structure, your organizational structure, and moving your schedulers around. It's very easy to move. If I want to move Jim to report to Chuck, I just go move and I select Chuck, and it moves him over there, right under there. So very easy to manage. Replacing would be, hey, I'm going to replace, let's see, I'm going to replace Drew. I want to replace it, right? So wherever I replace him, that's going to move Jessica, and everything under Drew is going to go where I replace it, right? It's going to move not just Drew, but everybody. It's going to replace that position with somebody. Anyway, so that's that. So there's the two things. One, the big thing is you can add groups, which is, we've got it set up there for region, division, so whatever kind of category. Really, that just kind of keeps track of the icons for you, makes it easier. Plus, the second thing is you can add additional people as an org chart administrator. They can go in and just kind of help. Even right now, currently in the old system, I could make someone an enterprise, But once again, if they're in the enterprise admin, they could go in and edit, but they're having to edit, this 100 user, whatever, however many users you had, they had to look at that whole thing to try to, add someone down here. So now you can make your regional people or whatever, however you do it, org chart admins. And so that's gonna make change how things look here in my if I go to operations, that's the one I just set up. Right, so here it is. Here's my West Coast, Central, East Coast. So I can see all of those. So if James Wood goes in, he's going to see the same thing. So I can go in under industrial, and there's my people under industrial. There's Andy's. Here's the people under commercial. Uh, here's my central division. Here's my East Coast, all those. So it's got all of that breakout that I had. And then also in the near future, you'll be able to select a group or a person, and this entire org chart will change for just that division, right? So that's coming up. We've waited to roll out the org chart, and here in the next next few weeks, you'll actually be able to actually select a division, for example, and this org chart shows that if they're in your org chart. Plus, the second drill down capability, if I'm looking at my SV scores, right, and I see where they are, I'll be able to click on this one, for example. Right now, this is showing my average for my entire organization. I'll be able to click on that, and it'll break into 3 lines. I'll be able to see my East, Central, and West, and I can see which one of those is the best, or the worst, or whatever. Click on that, and it drops it down to another level, and then I can drill all the way down through these different charts. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up. But what we'd encourage you to do is, particularly some of you that you had a whole bunch of different org charts, right? Just because of the limitations on the org charts. Let's set up a meeting and let's help you make your org chart better for better reporting.
John, how about the super viewer function? Did that go
That's-
away, or is that still in place?
No, that's still the same. So when I go into my projects, this is still my super viewer, all in enterprise. Or I could just say all in on this org chart. Yeah, the user stuff, the only really change at the user, you still have the super user. You can set up people as enterprise admin. But the big difference was there's a lot of people, especially in some of the larger organizations, there's a lot of people that I could really use their help in managing, from a reporting, adding people to, areas in the org chart, managing, being able to move projects around and all that kind of stuff within their group. But I didn't want to give them full enterprise admin, right? So this is kind of like an admin light, version where they can just do the org chart. But the super viewer is still there, can see everything in the enterprise.
I think again this is a step towards our goal of being able to give more granularity on the subscription. Where here pretty soon you're going to be able to add in all the users of your organization, and you'll be able to designate which of those users would be essential users, where thereby be able to contribute by loading schedules in the system. They would only be able to see the SV score, but all their data will publish into the dashboard. So as a portfolio viewer, you'll be able to see all the contribution those essential members of your team are making. And then as well as like a pro user, where I just worked yesterday with a wastewater treatment company. I know we don't have a lot of owners on this call right now, but they really wanted to have the ability to have their general contractor add users to the environment and be able to manage the schedules that they were uploading into the portfolio view, but the user itself would only see the projects that they were assigned to and they uploaded kind of as a professional user would see today. So that's really the catalyst to be able to drive kind of those 3 separate type of roles within the enterprise view, so we can meet kind of the needs of the corporation at bringing all that data into one view, but also from a financial standpoint, allowing you to kind of pay for the type of user you want to add into the environment.
So so to take that, what Todd was just saying, just to give you a heads up. So this was our major release for August, pretty much. And our September major release, we're hoping by the end of September, somewhere around the end of September, is what Todd was talking about, our new subscription model. So right now you have, basically we have three different types of users. We have someone that goes to our website, creates an account, and it's free. And they have a trial period, but then it goes to a free thing, and they can see, someone that has a free license can go in and see all of this, but the only reports they can see is just their SV score and their diagnostics, right? So they can see this, and they can see the SV score. But it's free, right? So they can upload their schedules, get their quality to where it needs to be, but that's really all they can do. They can create projects, add schedules, and get quality, and that's about it. Then you have a second version. Those people that subscribe are what we call our pro users. They subscribe, and they can get all of these additional reports. They can create projects. They can upload schedules. They get the quality, but then they also get all of these advanced, the execution change, all these reports and trends, everything like that. That's a pro user. And then we have what we call the enterprise user currently. That's going to be known as a portfolio user going forward, where they not only see all of their projects, but they see everybody in the org chart. That's like our standard enterprise user is currently. You can go in, and if you're in an org chart, you see everything in your org chart. So with our new subscription model, our enterprise users will have three user options, right? So you'll have a user option. You can add as many users as you want, but they'll all be basically essentials users, right? They can upload schedules, check their quality, and get their quality up before they publish, right? So that's kind of where I was telling you, Bill Jack, you'll easily be able to, if you have two projects that are in two regions that a scheduler is going to be working on both of them, since you can add three users, you can, put the project manager that's on that project, add them as a user, right? And they just, and then the scheduler is set up to where they can manage both of them, but he uploads them under the project manager, right? You can add that free user. So you'll have the free user, you'll have a portfolio in the enterprise. You can have someone that's a professional user. So you'll have someone, maybe it's just someone that's only on one project. So they don't need to see the portfolio. They just need to see their project and all their schedules. And they want to see all the advanced reports as well. That'll be a professional user within the enterprise, right? And then we'll have the portfolio user in the enterprise, which is kind of what the standard enterprise is now, where you can see not only your projects, but everybody else in the portfolio. So that's our new user model that's coming up, which is going to add even more flexibility to what you do with the org chart. That's why the org chart was so important, because, a lot of our enterprise users are going to be adding more, adding their project managers, because they can add them for free. So now their project managers can actually be responsible for their schedule to a certain extent, right? So that way, it's going to make it easier to manage in the org chart. So that's kind of what the roadmap is there. So that's going to be, like I said, hopefully very close to the end of this month, we'll have that.
That'll be handy.
It's going to be really, really, really good.
And of course, if you pay by project, you get unlimited users anyhow. And so
Correct.
That's the alternative. So
right, that's another alternative.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Right.
Oh,
Any
by the
other
way, one
questions?
more thing, by the way, just FYI, we had several users. This used to have this page right here. This is just keeping you up on what's going on. We used to have SV score and then the average SV score, and then execution and average execution. We had SPS and average schedule performance. And we had some some of our users came in and said, that is way too much, it's too cluttered on the dashboard. So we took it off and we had users coming back and said, hey, what happened to our average? Here shortly, probably by the end of this week, you'll actually be able to go to the filters over here. And there'll be a button here where you can say, I want to add, the average to you can pick which columns you want to show over here. So just keep an eye out for that. Sorry about taking that down. If any of you were using those averages, we took it down because you can go in the project and see it, right, what the average is. But we actually had a lot of our users came back and said, hey, we use that average all the time. We want to see it on the dashboard. So we're adding back in there, but if you'll have the option whether you want to see it or not.
It's one of the greatest software conundrums, if you would. If you take something away, you can find out real quickly who was using it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of exciting things coming up. But we just had a big meeting this morning, so we're looking forward to actually this week. This week we'll have some good stuff to report on next week. Some new reports that we're doing that you're really gonna like. I think that they're probably some of the most useful reports some of the most useful reports in the system that we're doing some good improvements on, and so looking forward to that. We'll talk about those next week.
I have one question before we go. I know we're at past time. This has to do with commodities and a discussion I had about Schedule Validator with a company that builds transmission lines. And so the commodity is a transmission tower. And if you've worked in that industry, you know that they build towers by pole segments because they have to have a certain number of towers complete before they pull the conductor. And so to keep this simple, I guess, let's say we have 3 pole segments, towers 1 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 30, whatever, 10 towers in each one. And on our plan, we're going to go in sequence from tower 1 to tower 9. But because of either permitting, right-of-way conditions, environmental restrictions, whatever, they don't start there. They don't do the first 10, they do the second 10. And so they're installing the same number of commodities, being towers in this case, that they had planned, but they've gone out of sequence. But in your execution score, you'd score 0 on starting any of the ones you had planned. I'm not sure how this would work in Schedule Validator. And this was their whole focus was on we're doing the same amount of work, we're just doing it in a different location. And this is typical of linear projects.
Well, there's a couple things. One, I mean, if I'm a manager, I want to be able to see when that's happening, right? So if I get a 0 execution because I resequenced them, right? Let me see if this one has it. This may not be a good example, but I would be able to see down here, yes, I didn't do tower 1 up here in my task that failed to start, but down here under my unplanned task, I would be able to see, oh, I went on ahead and did tower 2. It just wasn't scheduled for that period, right?
Okay.
There's one way to see that. I think so. Just one more thing. Our resource module. One of the improvements we're doing this week is we're starting to releasing parts of our new resource module where you could actually put those towers in as a resource and just be able to track them as the schedule moves around. And we'll get into that more. So that'll be another option to be able to just look at it from a resource standpoint. How are we, what's the change in our resource utilization? So that's going to be our resource module that we're rolling out. I think it's scheduled for October, right? Is going to be a great opportunity to do that. You'll have all kinds of resource functionality, actually even assigning resources to activities within Schedule Validator without having to actually resource load a P6 schedule. We have to, build your resource list and assign them to activities. So right now coming up, we have the 2.4 was the org chart. 2.5 is the new subscription models that we were talking about. 2.6 is the diagnostics, right? So being able to go into this is like the oldest part of our system, and it's going to be completely redone. Where every one of these critical path, I can do this by number. I'll be able to completely customize my diagnostics panel. And we'll get into that as that gets closer. That's 2.6. And then 2.7 is the resource module. So hopefully most of that will be done by the end of October. That's kind of what we're shooting for. So that'll be another good opportunity to do that. For right now, you can use the execution score that you'll get. If you got a 0, you can look at it and see, oh, that's why they resequence this.
Yeah, they wanted to show their stakeholders that they are in fact completing towers at the planned rate. They're just not completing them in the sequence that they
Right.
because of external issues.
Let me think of a way. Yeah, I mean you're right. Yeah, your resources are going to be really good. Having that resource chart.
Okay.
To,
Thank you, John.
You bet.
All right.
Any other questions?